But they were making a case that Klay Thompson looked like a different player last night. Not just because he's all fired up about Golden State giving Jimmy Butler the money, which maybe that's part of it, but they're also starting to run a different offense without Luka. This is now what it's going to look like, where the ball's not sticking with Luka, and Klay Thompson has to just spot up in the corner. Now, Ernie pushed back, and he's like, well, Luka's been out since Christmas, so where's this offense been?
Great point.
It is a good point.
Yeah.
What Kenny or Shaq, I forget who said this, but one of them said, well, yeah, you're not going to if you think you're having Luka back and Luka's going to come back at any point, you're not going to change your whole offense.
Yeah.
And this is the first indication that Dallas is going to play much differently. I still think once you get Davis out there with Kyrie, and Kyrie was horrible last night, once you get those two playing together, I still think short-term this is a win for Dallas. But it's hard to pick both the Lakers and Dallas as winners for this trade. So if I can break that up, I'd say Dallas wins short-term. Lakers, I do think win that trade long-term.
So I think Klay's kind of washed. I think he's capable of games like last night. Like I still think he can shoot, and he didn't even make a ton of threes or anything.
But don't you think Dallas starts to play differently instead of so ball dominant? And again, I know
Kyrie's kind of ball dominant.
He is, but he'll. I mean, look, Luka gets a lot of assists. The ball sticks with Luka. It really does.
No, I know. But I also think having a guy like Luka, I mean, you have to go back and look at it, but like how many wide open shots did Klay Thompson have with Luka versus, so I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. I just don't want to rely on Klay Thompson in 2025.
No, that's fair.
The guy that used to dress up as Klay Thompson at the Warriors games, he now looks exactly like. Like they used to be like, oh, that's sort of like a bigger version. Like, no, that's what he looks like now. He's the same. He's the same guy.
I'll tell you, I can't take the people who are like Sam Hauser's a good defender seriously. I will use last night as an example of the corpse of Klay Thompson was giving Sam Hauser work last night in that game.
Sam Hauser's he's just sort of big.
I'm not down. Yeah, he'll give you some effort defensively, I guess. But when Klay Thompson is roasting you, that's not a great sign.
No.
I think the Mavericks actually made out pretty well at the deadline, but it's hard to fully declare that until we at least see Anthony Davis out there on the floor. And I guess he's going to play this week.
I was going to say, if you get the Anthony Davis that sort of started this year for the Lakers, then okay, maybe you have something. I just don't know how high that puts them in the West. I think Oklahoma City's better. I think the Nuggets are better, and I think the Lakers are better. I think the Grizzlies and Rockets are sort of like a who knows, let's see. Maybe I'll be wrong about the Warriors. I don't think that I am, but maybe I'll be wrong about them, and maybe that'll be sort of like a close enough matchup between those two teams. I think the Suns are dead, but they're in that group. They're in that lump of guys where it's all right, you have a star player or two, and then kind of nothing else. So who's going to actually play their best over the next couple of months?
Yeah, so I do look at it, and I think the Lakers are very interesting, obviously, when you see how all of that is going to fit together. I still wonder why we had so much activity. This felt like significant activity at this trade deadline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And was it the craziest deadline we've seen? I guess I'd have to go back and really dig into it and look at other massive deals that have happened, but I don't remember a guy moving out of nowhere like Luka at a trade deadline. So my short answer would be, yeah, this is the craziest trade deadline we've seen. And I feel like we saw a lot of big names move in the days leading up to this deadline, not so much on deadline day yesterday. And I wonder what bigger forces are at stake there. And you have to wonder if that's a trend within the league or it's all reaction to, some bigger moves that were on the horizon. I don't think a lot of people knew about Luka moving. So I don't think it was like, oh, let's all get our ducks in a row because the Lakers are doing X, Y, and Z. I don't think most of the league knew. And so
they definitely didn't.
I wonder if it was just random or if it's a sign of things to come in the NBA where you're going to continue to see these guys move and guys move before they get their supermax because the owners are sick and tired of paying them. I wonder if that's a trend we're going to see coming out of this.
So deadline. I do think the supermax deals played a part in this a little bit. I think the Luka thing, though, is what's just so crazy. Nobody would trade a player that young, that good. They just wouldn't do it. Great players have been traded in the league, but usually they're not 25. They might be 29. And you're like, all right, you got to, how good are they going to be in their 30s and all that kind of thing? Or you'll see the team that is really good, but they're on the outside of the playoffs, and they're like, all right, we have this guy, but what are we going to do? How far are we going? And so we have to make a trade. Or in recent years, you've gotten the guys demanding trades, and you're sort of like, all right, now we got to move on from this guy. So Luka and AD were both minding their own business, playing for their respective teams, thinking that's who they were going to play for.
Right.
And then they both get traded. So that's what was so crazy about it. And then Butler sort of end of his career, Miami kind of hit the end of that. Zach LaVine had sort of been rumored to being traded for a little while. I just think when you add them all up, it's certainly the craziest. I wouldn't rule out the big contracts playing a little bit of a factor in it.
Greg brought this up to me during the crossover the other day. I was unaware of this conspiracy theory. Have you seen the conspiracy theory about Dallas ownership trading Luka so that the team could suck, so they could threaten to move the team to Vegas so that they could get a casino built and gambling,
They are casino
sports
people.
gambling legalized in Texas?
Yeah.
So I was unaware of that. Greg brought that up to me the other morning. I was reading up on it.
I don't hate that. There has to be something.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I thought Tom Haberstroh had a good write-up on this for Yahoo. And his point was none of the basketball reasons make sense.
Nope.
So if the basketball reasons make sense, it's got to be
Follow the money.
a business factor. And I hadn't heard of it. I was trying to kind of fumble my way through it and think about it. The more I read up on it, the more I'm like, oh, you know what? If the Mavericks suck, they could threaten to move the team. They could threaten with Vegas. The Adelsons have deep, deep ties to Vegas.
Yeah.
And then you try to push through getting sports gambling legalized in Texas, and now you can build your super casino right around the arena.
But there has to be more to it.
Yeah.
So, meaning like, all right, if you come up with a reason to trade Luka, most likely it's not a basketball reason. Okay, fine. That doesn't mean let's get an awful return. So, meaning like...
But it does. If the team's
No.
But if the team's competitive in the meantime...
But you could have spun it. So, what do you mean if
the team's competitive and healthy in the meantime, it's less of a threat to... Like, in other words, I think right now...
Yeah.
People look at it, Mavericks fans, local politicians look at it and say, well, the organization's in a healthy spot. You're not going to rip up the team with Luka there and move them when they're successful and playing well, and they were just in the NBA Finals.
Supposed to be successful in the short term?
Well, I think that. I don't know that everybody feels
well,
that way.
Guys,
I think
Perkins
people
and
are ready to like protest the game tomorrow night, so I don't think they feel
like
that way in
giving
Dallas.
money back to season ticket holders. Like that's how crazy it is.
I feel that way. I think Dallas is better in the short term. I don't think Mavericks fans feel that way at all.
But what you could do is you could really bottom out. Don't get a guy like Anthony Davis in return and get like 8 first-round picks, and then it's an easier sell to be like, hey, we're going to go to this team, and then the future's bright because we have all these picks.
Yeah.
So we suck right now. We find a way to get out of Dallas, but then we have Team X's first-round pick every year for 10 years.
So the motivation could be still to trade Luka, but you still could have got a better return. It doesn't defend the return.
I think you could have gotten a much better like long-term return, which should have been the idea if you're trading a 25-year-old Luka Doncic. I mean, all the people coming out of the woodwork with like Rudy Gobert got 5 first-round picks. Like Kevin Durant got like 8 first-round picks. Like, how is this possible that you got 1 first-round pick for Luka Doncic?
Yeah, the return is, and I like it more than most.
Yeah.
But long-term, not getting more picks, not getting young players is a head-scratcher. Because I like Anthony Davis, and I think people sleep on Anthony Davis. But
I'm fast asleep.
That is not much of a return. So a wild NBA trade deadline. Is it a sign of things to come in the NBA, or is it a one-off? Was it random that we saw so many big names move, specifically Luka Doncic? You can jump in on that.